Just relax your body. Relax your body completely. Be aware of all the stress and tension that you're carrying around in your system. Be aware of the tension in your face, especially in your jaws. Unclench and relax your jaws. Relax your shoulders, relax your back, and take a deep breath. Inhale, fill your belly, expand, and exhale. Inhale slowly, inhale deeply, and exhale. Just be aware. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to my spiritual teacher, Master Chakuk Sui, to Lord Mahaguruji Meiling, to all the great ones, the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, to the angels of theosophy, to the angels of pranic healing and arhatic yoga, to our higher self, to our guardian angels, we humbly invoke for your blessings of love, light, and power, for divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to come together as a group to study and understand the topic of clairvoyance. Thank you for giving us the ability to utilize our senses as well as our higher senses to become clean, clear, and proper instruments for helping humanity, for helping Mother Earth, for blessing and healing all those we share the planet with. We thank you for a deeper understanding. We thank you for helping us to become better persons and better souls. Now inhale. Inhale the blessings. Inhale the energy. And as you exhale, just visualize your physical body completely disappearing. Inhale and exhale. If you have any aches or pains, any difficulties, just visualize them melting away. Inhale once more. Inhale, hold your breath. Exhale, and as you exhale, release all of your thoughts, anything that's coming in your mind, just release and let go. Inhale, and do the same for your emotions. All your feelings, just let go. Not the body, not the emotions, not the thoughts, not even the mind. Experience this feeling of lightness, of floating. Raise your awareness and expand your awareness, the room that you are in. Now expand your consciousness to the entire building and the locality. You may visualize that you are floating many meters, hundreds of feet above your physical location. You are floating, you are flying, and you're moving higher and higher until you can see the whole of planet Earth, this pale blue dot that we call Mother Earth. Blessings be to Mother Earth. Feel a wave of love coming from God, passing through your teacher, passing through your higher soul, then passing through you, and share this love with Mother Earth. Share the love, share the peace, share the stillness. Just be still and be aware of the stillness. Continue to breathe slowly and deeply. You may notice, you may visualize certain colors. You may see certain things. Make a note of what it is that you are experiencing. And just allow it to come in front of you and allow it to pass. Just let go. Just let go. Now take a deep breath. It is time to return to our bodies. Inhale. And exhale. As you exhale, move your fingers. Inhale once more. And as you exhale, move your toes. Inhale once more, slowly and deeply. Bring yourself back, bring your consciousness fully back to your body. Move your fingers and your toes with a big smile. Let's take one more breath. Clear yourself. If you want, you can rub your eyes. You can tap your body gently to make sure that your soul, your body is fully connected. Atma Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Esoteric Study Club on this session of Clairvoyance. Now, before we start, this particular book is a relatively short one. It's less than 100 pages, and about 90% of it is theory. It talks about what clairvoyance is, the different types of clairvoyance, and it makes a lot of references to the various other books and the writings of other authors who have done a lot of studies on the subject matter. In this series of studies, we will be collecting parts of the information from those various sources to make the content as practical as possible. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee that this session is going to make you a clairvoyant. In fact, that was never promised, but we will definitely try to make your understanding of clairvoyance deeper and give you certain tips and techniques which are mentioned in the book to help you practice better. So as the WhatsApp group mentioned, people asked, will you be seeing angels in today's session? Well, hopefully in your meditation in the last 30 seconds or so, you saw something beautiful. That said, let us begin. So these are the main chapters we are going to be seeing in this particular study session. An introduction onto what clairvoyance is, that's what we'll be studying today. And it'll tell you what it is and certain basic info. In the sessions that follow, we'll be talking about simple clairvoyance, the difference between partial clairvoyance and full clairvoyance. The day after that, we're going to be talking about clairvoyance in space and dealing about when clairvoyance happens to be intentional, semi-intentional, and completely unintentional. So just to give you an example, what you witnessed today, what you might have experienced in your meditation session, short meditation right now, would have been an example of unintentional clairvoyance if you saw anything. If you didn't, well and good. We'll be practicing more and more, hopefully to see how much we can develop the abilities. In the next few studies, we'll be going about clairvoyance in time, wherein you can see the past and the future. So that's the interesting thing about clairvoyance, that it's not limited to physical space and to physical time alone. There is a certain element of time travel, as you may fancifully call it, to see what happens. Don't use it to look at your examination results or to bet on the stock market or on horses. That's not what clairvoyance is for. And finally, it talks about the methods of development, tips, and techniques. This is the shortest part of the book, and we will try to elaborate on it with more cross-references. So let's begin. In clairvoyance, this particular slide that you are seeing, these are the representations of the human body and the aura, and the kinds of colors and shapes and textures which take place within the aura of a human being. Now, if you've been with us for the study sessions of the previous session, starting from the astral body, mental body, and causal body, you will be familiar with some of the shapes and colors. For example, the first one shows the aura of a devotional person with lower portions showing selfishness. The darker colors, the hotter colors, they represent more selfishness, while the lighter colors, the gentler, cooler colors, represent to a certain extent spirituality. The second slide shows a wave of strong and pure affection that is sweeping over a person. So clairvoyantly, if you see a person who's doing meditation and they're blessing everyone else with love and harmony and goodwill and peace, these are the kind of colors and shapes that you may expect to see a person doing meditations on loving kindness. Now, you may have some people who say, I am a very loving person, I'm a very kind person, I bless everyone every day, all the time. And then your clairvoyance is activated and you look at them and say, why is your aura all gray and black? So then you know that, all right, this person is perhaps not being entirely honest in the practice of their loving kindness. So next one you see is a person who's consumed by intense anger, someone whose aura is dark gray with black and with these streaks of lightning which are there floating about. And the last one, something's very nice, a person in love. Okay, the upper part, the person is very, very loving. He's deeply in love, he or she. It's difficult to tell. And you've got these nice floating clouds about him. He's floating in a cloud of love. Lust and jealousy shown in the lower half with affection and devotion in upper areas. And of course, if you love somebody, if you're really, really in love for the first time, young love, then of course there's a hint of jealousy if your beloved is not responding within 30 seconds to your text messages or is not picking up the phone call the first time it rings. So there is an element of jealousy and envy and other forms of attraction in love itself. So there's a difference between pure love, there's a difference between selfish love, romantic love, the love between parent and child, between teacher and student, and so on and so forth. Clairvoyantly, these are seen as different shapes, different sizes, different textures, and other qualities. So what exactly, technically speaking, what is clairvoyance? Clairvoyance literally means nothing more than clear seeing. And this is a word which has been misused and misunderstood by a lot of people. And when it was coming into vogue some hundreds of years ago, it was be shown in parlors at magic tricks and just as a form of practical jokes. So the term clairvoyance got really, really, really degraded. And even now, if you say in serious conversation that I am clairvoyant or I know someone who's clairvoyant, chances are they're going to look at you like you haven't showered for 2 weeks, maybe even 2. Yeah, I don't know. So the purpose of this particular study session, we may perhaps define clairvoyance as the power to see what is hidden from ordinary physical sight. So it's well to guess, it is very well to assume that frequently clairvoyance is accompanied by what is called clairaudience. So if clairvoyance is clear vision, then clairaudience would be clear hearing. You'd be able to hear what other people are thinking, saying, doing activities in the inner world. So the power to hear, which is inaudible to our physical ears. Now, first of all, the author of this book, Charles Leadbeater, Bishop C.W. Leadbeater, he says that this book is not for those who don't believe in clairvoyance in the first place. And there is no attempt to even convince the people that we are not looking at that something as clairvoyance exists. We're taking for granted that there is something as clairvoyance, and we're working entirely on that assumption, on that particular logic. So this book is for the better instructed group of people who know that yes, clairvoyance does exist, and they're sufficiently interested in the subject to have more information about it. So as Bishop Leadbeater says, I would assure everyone that what I write is the result of much careful study and experiment, and that though some of the powers which he will describe may seem new and wonderful, each and every one of them have been seen by him with examples. So we are in for a lot of examples in this particular study session. Although this particular section, which we'll talk about for the next half an hour, 45 minutes or so, we will be talking very much about theory to get a differentiation and understanding of what clairvoyance actually is and what you might think to be clairvoyance, but it's not. So you must understand that a lot of the terms which we'll be using are theosophical in nature. We'll be talking about the higher soul or the ego. We'll be talking about the personality or the incarnate soul, divine spark, monad, all these kind of terms. They're somewhat taken for granted as a part of our present vocabulary now because we've been studying for it for some time. But don't worry about it. We're going to keep things as simple as possible so that no matter your level of instruction, no matter your level of expertise or knowledge on the subject, by the time the session is done, you will be able to understand a lot of the esoteric terms and the application of those terms. Because what's the point in just understanding a term theoretically if you haven't experienced it, or at least you're not equipped to experience it? So before we go into a very detailed explanation of clairvoyance, some time is necessary to understand some preliminary considerations in order that we may have clarity in our mind about a few broad facts about the different planes on which clairvoyance vision may be seen and the conditions under which clairvoyance is possible. So first things first, there'll be certain terms. Number 2, clairvoyance is possible at certain levels, at certain planes. And number 3, clairvoyance is possible in those certain planes only under certain conditions. It's not a switch that you can turn on and off. It has to have a certain amount of conditions, certain criteria. The practitioner, the student, must be in a certain frame of mind, must have a certain character building, must have a certain purity. Because otherwise, if everyone had automatically become clairvoyants and developed X-ray vision that they could see underneath everything, through everything at any point of time, then life would become very, very unnecessarily complicated. So therefore, clairvoyance works, but you must be trained in it. It will not happen overnight. Although if you are looking to see angels, like I mentioned in the group before, everyone switch on your webcams and look at one another. We're all beings of divine love after all. So what is clairvoyance? Theosophy tells us that there are higher faculties which are present in humanity in general, and the capacity of clairvoyance lies latent, asleep in everyone. And those in whom it already manifests itself are simply those who are a little more advanced than the rest of us. So if you're a kind of person who has already started seeing things, who's experienced certain objects, you might see something from the corners of your eyes, or you can visualize something and it's very clearer, chances are that you're already a little more advanced than the rest of everyone else. So if you've experienced that, pat yourself on the back, good job. Now, this statement is true, and yet it seems quite vague and unreal to the majority of people simply because they regard such a faculty as something which is absolutely different from anything that they themselves have ever experienced. And they feel very confident that they themselves are particularly not within that distance of development. This is important. If you remember in our study sessions in the astral plane, mental plane, thought forms, there are certain things called thought forms that every time we think, it creates an image, it has an energy. Thought forms are real. Those thought forms which we feed, those thought forms which we continuously energize, become bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger. If you've done pranic psychotherapy, or if you are yet to do pranic psychotherapy, you will understand more about thought forms and the effect that they have on the chakras, on the aura of a person. So when we create a limiting thought form that, oh, I'm not clairvoyant, oh, I'm not spiritually developed, oh, I'm limited, the thought form becomes bigger and bigger, and we effectively are sabotaging ourselves from becoming more and more clairvoyant. So before we move forward, I'm going to pause here and we're going to do a little bit of an exercise. This is in the tips and techniques. I'm just bringing it out over here. We're going to do a little bit of an exercise so that we can remove such thought forms and such self-limiting beliefs from our system. Are we ready? Are you ready to do this practice? Okay. Flash of thumbs? Yes? No? All right. Everyone sit straight. Keep your tongue connected to your palate. If this is your palate, your tongue must be connected. Try to connect between the soft and the hard palate. So you've got the hard palate and then you've got the soft palate. Try to find that exact position between the hard and the soft. That's the sweet spot. Once you find it, you'll automatically feel a sense of lightness or a different sensation passing through your body. Okay? All right. Keep your chin parallel to the floor and keep your shoulders rolled back and down. Keep your shoulders rolled back and down. Close your eyes and visualize yourself in front of you. Close your eyes and visualize yourself in front of you. Imagine that you're looking at yourself. Smile at yourself. Smile at yourself and say, I am happy. I am healthy. I deserve my success. I deserve to be more successful. I deserve to be happy, healthy, to be prosperous, to be spiritually developed. I am becoming the best version of myself. Repeat this loudly 3 times. I am becoming the best version of myself. I am becoming the best version of myself. I am becoming the best version of myself. Now, keeping your eyes closed and maintaining the connection of tongue to palate, simply inhale the energy that is now passing to you. Inhale the energy coming from your higher soul, passing through you. Absorb this energy of strength, of power, of vitality. Let a few moments pass. Continue breathing slowly. Continue to maintain the connection of the tongue to the palate. Visualize yourself as 6 inches or 15 centimeters tall. Visualize yourself as 6 inches or 15 centimeters tall from the front. visualize your inner aura. Just mentally say, I am seeing my inner aura. With the help and blessings of God, with the help and blessings of my spiritual teacher, I am visualizing my inner aura. Make a note mentally of the size, of the color. Look at your inner aura. Are there some parts where it's bigger, some parts where it's smaller? Are there some parts which appear to be brighter and some parts not quite as bright? You are simply looking. Now, turn around and visualize the back of your body. 6 inches or 15 centimeters, seeing yourself from the back. Observe your inner aura. Pay careful attention to the area of the spine, especially the middle of the spine, near the area of the back heart and the back solar plexus. Is that area clean, or does it appear to be a little dirty? If you're familiar with congestion or depletion, simply make a note. Now, look from the base of the neck all the way down to the base of the spine, and go down to the soles of the feet. And look for a few centimeters or inches below the feet. Is it strong? Is it healthy? Do you see beams of light extending? Or are you seeing just a mist? Mentally say, thank you to my higher soul for helping me see my aura. I thank you. Say this with a smile. Don't be so serious. Have a smile on your face. Thank you. Thank you. Now open your eyes. Please share in the chat what you have witnessed. And while you're writing this down, I'll mention that it helps to dispel the sense of unreality if we try to understand that clairvoyance, like so many other things in nature, is simply a question of vibrations. And it's nothing more than an extension of our powers, which we're using every day of our lives. If we keep telling ourselves that yes, we are clairvoyant, that yes, we have ability to see, to experience, and to feel, over a period of time, not overnight, not immediately, over a period of time, the faculty expresses itself. It becomes more and more powerful. So we are all living in an ocean of energy. And as the book says, we are living in this all this while surrounded by a vast sea of air and ether, etheric energies. And these etheric energies are interpenetrating the air, as it does for all kind of physical matter. And it's simply by means of vibration in that vast sea of matter that impressions reach us from outside. So in order to become clairvoyant, in order to exercise clairvoyance, we need to be very tuned in to the vibrations that are passing through ether and the finer matters. Okay, so would you like to share any more experiences that you may have seen or witnessed? The shape or any colors or anything that you saw? And if you didn't see anything, if it was just blank, that's also very good, because that means there's a sense of quietness and stillness. So a white aura, that's very good. Now, we all know that there is matter, there's energy, and there are vibrations, but it might never have occurred to us that many of these vibrations which we are capable of responding is actually really, really, really small. It's what they call infinitesimal. And the vibrations up among the exceedingly rapid vibrations which affect the ether, there's a certain small section, a very, very small section, to which the retina of the human eye is capable of responding. And these particular vibrations produce in us the sensation which we call light. So the human eye is capable of seeing a very small amount of vibrations in the electromagnetic spectrum, which we call visible light. We know this in physics from basic physics. But there are so many more, millions more, according to the book, of vibrations which the physical human eyes cannot see. So we are capable only a certain amount of objects from which light can either be reflected or which radiates light. So there's a huge other world of light which we are yet not seeing. Okay, so Geeta has written, I am seeing my inner aura whitish to light pinkish in color, wow, extending to light bluish in color, all even and around my body. The spine is whitish in color, not sure whether this is my strong visualization. Now, for people who ask, I'm not sure if I'm imagining things, I'm not sure if I'm just visualizing, my question is this: why are you visualizing that particular thing? Why are you seeing those particular colors? Why those particular shapes? So keep practicing this exercise where you can see your own inner aura. There are some other physical exercises, but we're going to keep that for the rest of the book. As of now, what is very important is to remove the sense of doubt from ourselves that, I'm not clairvoyant, I cannot see. Okay? So in exactly the same way that the human ear, the eardrum, the tympanum of the human ear, is capable of responding to certain very small range of vibrations, we are capable of listening to vibrations which are bigger and louder. So let me ask you this. Has it ever happened that you're chatting with somebody and you get the feeling in the back of your neck that someone's staring at you? Of course, this is when you were allowed out in public and people were there surrounding you. If you're in lockdown and you're at home alone and no one's around you and you get a feeling that someone's staring at you, that might be cause for concern. But have you ever experienced this? That someone's staring at you or looking at you? We pick up, our aura picks up on the vibrations, on the chords of energy which other people send out. The human skin is the largest sense organ of the body, spread across several square meters, more or less, across the entire body. The human eyes are much, much, much smaller in comparison. So when the physical body, when the human skin, it can pick up the vibrations that other people are sending, imagine what happens when we train ourselves with our eyes to be able to see those same vibrations coming to us. So you're going through life, you're going through a normal work day, suddenly you see a cord coming towards you, you can maybe dodge the cord. That'd be a very interesting superpower to have, wouldn't it? All right, Malar says, I saw green and pink and white. There was a break in the front view. The back showed a depletion near the basic. The feet showed white light similarly. That's all right. So you're seeing this particular thing. So you may ask yourself, if you remember from the chapter on thought forms, green, it symbolizes a certain amount of flexibility. It can also symbolize a certain amount of self-interest. Pink symbolizes love. But if there was a break, then you might be asking yourself, am I taking good care of myself? Am I spending as enough time in self-care as I should? And if there's a break in the feet or in the back, is there a sense of not doing enough, spending enough time for myself in my health? So these are certain questions that you can ask. Now, pink, everyone is in love. Pink would naturally be there because we have been meditating for a certain amount of time. So a certain amount of pink should be there in our auras. So, yeah. Any questions up until this point? No? All right. In that case, let's just move on. Now, it's well known to science that there are a large number of vibrations above and below the visible part. So you have visible light, you have infrared, infra meaning under, and ultraviolet, ultra meaning over. So you have the color spectrum, VIBGYOR, red, orange, yellow, green, all the way up to violet. So anything below red is infrared, anything above violet is ultraviolet. So science knows and has known for a very long time that you can see the large number of vibrations, that there are many vibrations above and below infrared and ultraviolet. And consequently, there is much light that we cannot see, and there are many sounds to which our ears are deaf. So normal human sound is supposed to be 20 to 20,000 hertz. Dogs can hear from, I think, the same to 40,000 hertz, bats, something similar, so on and so forth. So in these cases of light, the action of these higher and lower vibrations is very easily perceptible in the effects produced by the rays at one end of the spectrum and the heat rays at the other. So I'm going to show you with a photograph in a couple of more slides. And as a matter of fact, there exist vibrations of every conceivable degree of rapidity, filling the whole vast space intervening between the slow sound waves and the very fast light waves. And that's also not all, for there are undoubtedly variations much slower than sound and a whole infinity of them which are much, much, much faster than light. Point being, the more we train ourselves, the more we practice, the more we can expand our consciousness, the more we can expand our awareness onto these abilities, onto these frequencies, which are not yet accessible to us. Okay, so there's a question. If you're physically sick, can it be more difficult to see the aura? Yes, that is absolutely possible. In fact, that's very, very, very possible. Yes. So now we begin to understand that the vibrations by which we see and hear are only two tiny groups of a few selected strings from an enormous harp, an enormous orchestra of practically infinite extent. So when we think how much we've been able to learn and infer from the use of these small, minute fragments, we see vaguely what possibilities might lie before us if we are enabled to visualize and utilize the wonderful whole. Very simply put, all the progress that we've made in our society, in science and technology, in our lives so far, is with the input we get from the five senses, which are limited as they are. So imagine if we had senses which could be utilized to see everything above and beyond what we already have. Can you imagine the amount of progress that we may have if we use all of these abilities at our disposal? So here is a photograph of a prism, which is, you have a single beam of light which passes through the prism, and the prism, I think, refracts the light, breaks the light down into the 7 different colors from red all the way to violet. So there was an experiment done by the scientist. I kind of don't remember his name right now. What he did was he placed a thermometer. He placed a thermometer on each of these colors. He placed a thermometer on each of these colors, and he found that it was hottest near the red and coldest near the violet, a few degrees of difference. One day, when he was conducting the same experiment, he was doing it in different times in different locations, he accidentally placed the thermometer away from the red. So instead of placing it right here, he placed it a little distance away by mistake. And when he came back after some time to check the results, he found that the thermometer had become really, really, really warm, much more warm than what it was if he had just put it in the red area. So then he concluded that there is a kind of light which is invisible, but which produces a lot of heat. So with that idea in mind, with that inspiration in mind, they went on to discover the other aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's how infrared light was discovered. So it's not just that light is there, the light produces a certain amount of heat. And the more light there is, the chances are there's also a certain amount of greater temperature. So have you met some people who've been meditating for years and years, and they tend to feel warm? They feel very warm when they're meditating. Or they might conversely feel very cold also when they're meditating. These people's temperatures are different to the touch. Why? Because the amount of energy which is coming to them, the light, the divine light which is coming to them, it has a certain quality of temperature. And as this particular temperature passes through the body, the temperature of the body itself changes. That's why you find yourself more energized, a lot more stronger, a lot more vibrant after you do certain meditations. For those of you who've been practicing the Twin Hearts meditation, basically Twin Hearts with self-healing, or if you've done pranic psychotherapy, then Twin Hearts with chakral healing, then you'll find more and more different interesting effects as you pay more attention to the meditation. So you might notice all these effects which are there. Now, another fact which needs to be considered in this particular connection is that different human beings vary considerably, although within relatively narrow limits in their capacity of response, even to the very few vibrations which are within the reach of our physical senses. For example, if anyone takes a prism made of carbon bisulfide and throw a clear spectrum on a sheet of white paper, and they get a number of people to mark upon the paper the limits of the spectrum. So let's just go back to this previous slide. If you do this experiment physically and you ask different people, show us where the red starts and show us where the blue starts and show us where the violet starts, different people will mark out different spots. Not everyone will pinpoint exactly red there or they will not pinpoint blue exactly there. Because even while they can see the colors, the degree to which they can see varies from person to person. So the amount of clairvoyant ability that a person has will vary compared to another person. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just what it is. So there are people who might be proclaiming themselves as non-clairvoyant. There are people who might proclaim themselves as super clairvoyant. It's just a matter of degrees, what is visible and what is not. So some will see the violet extending much farther than the majority. Others will perhaps see less violet, but they will see a lot more red. So just because some people cannot see a certain part doesn't mean that they cannot see other parts. They have other faculties, other types of clairvoyance which become activated. So there'll be a few people who can see farther than ordinary at both ends. And these people are what we call sensitive people, and they're susceptible to a great range of vibrations than most ordinary people. These people tend to be more spiritually developed. Tend to be. It's not a guarantee of spiritual development just because someone is clairvoyant. The book is very clear in mentioning this. Just because someone is clairvoyant or they can see a lot of things does not indicate that they are very, very, very spiritually developed. So that's a point to be noted. Now, so far, we have only thought of an extension of the purely physical senses of man. And when we remember that a man's etheric body is in reality simply the fine part of the physical plane, and that all the sense organs contain a large amount of etheric matter in various degrees of density. The capacities of these are still practically latent or asleep in most of us, and we shall see that even if we limit ourselves to this line of development alone, there are enormous possibilities of all kinds opening out for us. So we know that from basic pranic healing, we know that we have a physical body, visible physical, and then we have an invisible physical body, or the etheric body. And the etheric body, the etheric matter, it surrounds us and it interpenetrates us, not just the hands and legs, but all the organs inside and outside. So besides and beyond all this, we know that there's also an astral body and a mental body. So you've got the physical body, you've got the etheric body, you've got the astral body, you've got the mental body, and you've got the causal body all around it, which we studied in our previous study sessions. Each of these bodies can, in the process of time, be activated. Each of these bodies can be activated, and it'll respond in turn to the vibrations of matter on its own plane, thus opening up before the ego, opening up to the higher soul, as the higher soul learns to function through these vehicles, opening up a new world of knowledge and power. So you have physical clairvoyance with the physical organs or the physical eyes. Then you've got the clairvoyance of the energy body. Then you've got the clairvoyance of the astral body, and the clairvoyance of the mental body, and the clairvoyance ultimately of the causal body. So if you studied the previous sessions, if you've been with us in our journey as we studied the various bodies in the last several months, the more you studied, the more to a certain extent, those bodies got stimulated. So if you've been following us in all the sessions, to a very large extent, energy has been going to all these bodies, and they are now more attuned. So if you ever do a planning or a session where we say, okay, we will now focus our attention on the astral body, let's try to tune in with the astral side, we might do that. We might do that. Chances are that if you've been studying before, it'll respond to you much, much faster. So a good time for all those who are meaning to catch up on their study sessions or who are going to catch up on the recordings to read more. All right. Now, these worlds, these other expanding worlds, which are available to us by the other senses, the other bodies, they are all around us. Let's just pause here for some time. All these new worlds, physical, etheric, astral, mental, and so on, they are all around us, and they freely interpenetrate one another. Pay attention to these words. These other worlds are not to be thought of as distinct and entirely unconnected to the substance, but rather as melting one into another. So don't think of that earth is here and heaven is somewhere billions of kilometers away. Don't think of hell or I don't know, whatever, as another billions of kilometers away. It's all right here in this space around us, physically, right here, right now. So the kingdom, the path to heaven is within us. It's around us. Similarly, if you're having a bad day or if you're anticipating something not so good is happening, you are living in your own personal hell of misery at that particular point of time. So all these various states of matters, they are not distinct in different layers. They're all interpenetrating. They all exist within themselves. That's a nice bit of dancing there. Okay, bonus. So rather, you should think of them as melting one into the other. The lower astral forms a direct series with the highest physical, just as the lower mental, in turn, forms a direct series with the higher astral. So you've got the lower astral, and you've got the higher astral. Then you've got the lower mental, and you've got the higher mental. So the upper part of the higher astral melts into the lower part of the lower mental. So don't think of it as distinct. It's all blending into one another. So it is possible at any point in time, with sufficient energy, with sufficient practice, to expand our consciousness tremendously from just our physical being to all the way up to our higher soul. So for those of us who are on the spiritual path, attempting to achieve oneness with the higher soul is not somewhere billions of kilometers or a different plane of existence. Your higher soul is with you right now at this point in time. All we have to do is be aware. So there is no clear intersection. Everything is blending in to another. It's simply the degree of awareness which you have, which you need to develop. So when you're thinking of them, you're not called upon in thinking of them to imagine something new, some strange kind of matter. Just simply think of ordinary physical kind as subdivided into much more fine and much more refined vibrations very rapidly, very fast, so you can think of them as new conditions. Okay? So this is a explanation, it's a bit of an idea from the previous study sessions on the various planes of nature and how they are. So let's see if we can zoom in here. Can you see this part zoomed in? The planes of nature, starting from the physical at the bottom, solid, liquid, gas, etheric, super etheric. Then you've got the etheric double. Then you've got the various 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planes of the astral matter. Then you've got the 4 lower planes of the mental matter and the 3 higher planes. And then the 7 higher planes of the causal matter, the buddhic, nirvanic, and so on and so forth. If you've done the causal body sessions, recordings are still available. You can see the 3 manifestations of the logos which come down and the threefold spirit and matter. So all of this information is accessible to us. We simply have to expand our consciousness, expand our awareness from the dense physical to the energy physical, to the astral, to the mental, and higher and higher. So you can just take a look at this particular diagram and understand that all of these planes of existence are blending into one another. Yeah, you can take a screenshot of this if you want, or maybe we'll just share it in the group. And on this side, this talks about involution and evolution. That is, it goes down from the higher planes all the way down to the lower planes and then back up to the higher planes. We covered this in one of the first study sessions in the solar system. So you've got matter, which starts, it's the physical matter, mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom, and spiritual kingdom. It goes all the way down and then all the way back up. So all of these things, it's a matter of existence, different planes of existence, and so forth. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So now this, given an example, is just a regular example. You can think of a bar of iron. So let's just take a just take a block over here. Just imagine you have a mass of physical molecules in solid condition, which are inside, but they also have a corresponding amount of ether in them. They have some etheric matter in them. The astral counterpart of this block consists of what we call solid astral matter. That's the matter of the lowest and densest subplane of the astral. But nevertheless, the particles of this are constantly moving and rapidly changing their relative position, moving from one position to another position. What this means to say is there is no permanent association between any one physical particle of astral matter and any other part. So all of the physical astral molecules, just imagine if all the physical astral molecules are here, at any point of time, they can jump up to the refined states. So effectively, why are we talking about this? Is because your vision, your ability to see, if it's limited to the physical level, you can, by an act of will, by training yourself, you can simply elevate the atoms that are seen in the physical world to the atoms of the energy world. Let me repeat that. By an act of will, by practicing with sufficient spiritual development, the matter, the atoms of the physical can be energized sufficiently that you can go all the way up to seeing different things in the higher worlds. So let's ask you a question. Have you noticed things when you're in the period of stillness, when you're doing meditation? Have you noticed that you're able to see, to visualize, and sense various kind of lights or shapes or objects? Have you noticed this? If you have, that was basically, effectively, the mechanism is that the molecules, the atoms of your dense energy body acquired so much energy that it shot up. It went to the higher worlds, to the refined states. It saw things in that place. And then when the energy was released, it came back down and your brain remembers. Practical explanation, practical example. Do you remember when we were studying, I think this was the astral body? We were studying the astral body and there was a session on dreams. And there was a technique given over there. How do you have dreams? How do you remember your activities in the inner world? So the thing was, before you go to sleep, you invoke. You invoke to the Supreme God, you invoke for your spiritual teacher, you invoke for help, guidance, and protection. That before you go to sleep, you want to go to the world, the schools in the inner world where you can study. Or you can invoke that you want to do service in the inner world, that you may be of help to humanity and to all the various beings of energy which exist on planet Earth. And your physical brain may or may not remember the activities in the inner world. And when it comes back, you will get a sense of accomplishment that you've done something. You might have noticed on certain days you've gone to sleep very, very tired and you've woken up, but you're still very tired. And it feels like, oh my God, I've been working all night. Even though your body was asleep for 7, 8, 9 hours, you still wake up feeling very tired, feeling very fatigued. That's because in the inner world, you're still at work. Your physical body is at rest, but all your energy bodies, everything, it's out there in the inner world, in the astral world, in the mental world, doing activity. So when you come back to your body in the morning, it's still tired. That's a good way to be of service all the time, but you must also take rest. So here's a technique. You may note this down if you wish. Before going to sleep, you invoke. In fact, let's do this. Let's do this invocation right now and plan it for when we are going to bed, whenever we go to bed. Ready? Let's just take a deep breath, close our eyes and say to the Supreme God, to my spiritual teacher, to my higher soul, I humbly invoke for your help, guidance, and protection that tonight when I go to sleep, my consciousness may go to the schools in the inner world where I may learn from my spiritual teacher. I invoke for divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection. I invoke for divine blessings that I, in the inner world, may go to the schools of the inner world and learn. And I invoke for help that I may remember what I have learned in the schools in the inner world. I thank you in full faith. Thank you. Thank you. Now gently open your eyes. This is a simple experiment. Let us know in the chat group tomorrow if you've seen anything in the inner world, how the experience was. You will remember to do this before you go to sleep again at night so that the exercise is a little more fruitful. Okay? All right. Can we have this prayers typed here? This is just an invocation. It's just something we can come up with on the spot. Okay. So I'll just say it again. You may write it down if you wish. You invoke to the Supreme God. You invoke to your spiritual teacher for divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection. That's very important. Divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection, that you may go to the schools in the inner world to learn from your spiritual teacher. And that when you come back in the morning to your physical body, you may remember what you have learned. So 3 or 4 parts you invoke to the Supreme God, to the spiritual teacher, for divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection, that you may go to the school in the inner world to learn from your spiritual teacher, and that when you return to your body in the morning, you remember what you have learned. Okay? Is this part clear? Any further questions on this? Okay. So now we have to understand some of the levels of separation. This kind of theory is important because it prepares us for greater control. If we know what it is that we are going to be working with, if we know the instruments you're working with, when it comes to actually practicing for clairvoyance, it becomes a lot more effective. Think of this: you're going to the kitchen to cook, and if you don't know the difference between a knife and a fork or a spoon, then cutting your potatoes or cutting your vegetables is going to be extremely complicated. So everyone wants to prepare a good dish, but if they don't know the difference between cutting with a knife and cutting with a fork, then preparing the end result is going to be very problematic. Not to say it can't be done. I'm sure you can do some really amazing cutting with a spoon, but it might take much longer and not be quite as effective than if you did it with a proper instrument. So if you know the proper instruments that you are to work with, then makes the work a lot easier. Hence the theory. So we also keep in mind that matter flicks around from the physical state to all the other kinds of energy states. So you're not just there in the physical state. The matter, the consciousness with sufficient amount of energy can flip out and go to its corresponding other atomic positions in the physical, in the etheric, in the astral, in the mental, and so on. So if you really invoke, if you really practice, then you'll be able to elevate your consciousness through these varying stages of matter. And it's important to understand which body falls where, which plane blends into which plane, that the journey can be smooth. So with respect to the astral body, for which is at the moment we may regard consisting of two parts. The astral body consists of the denser astral body, which is occupying the position of the physical body, and rarer astral body, which acts like a cloud. So your astral body is also kind of within your physical body, the heavier part, and the lighter part of the astral body is like a cloud surrounding you. And in both these parts and between them both, there is going on at every moment a rapid intersection and jumping of particles. So that as one watches the molecules of the astral body, you kind of look at it as water which is fiercely boiling. So if you want to understand how the astral body looks, just look at a pot of boiling water. This being said, it must be understood that through any given organ of the physical body, there must have a certain amount of astral component. It does not retain the same particles for more than a few seconds at a time, and consequently, there is nothing corresponding to the specialization of physical matter into astral matter. So the physical matter moves in and out into the astral matter, coming in, coming out from the heavy astral to the lighter astral. So through the physical eye or ear, it always has its counterpart of astral matter. The atoms themselves are not always in the same position, they're moving about. So it must never be forgotten that although we are constantly speaking of astral sight or astral hearing in order to have a good conversation, what we mean by these expressions is the faculty of responding to such vibrations which convey to man's consciousness, which convey to our consciousness, whether we are functioning through the astral body that has been conveyed by the eyes or the ears. Point being, if you're in the inner world and you're not sure whether you've heard something or whether you've seen something, it can become very confusing. So there is only oneness in all of these forms of matter, but through conscious activity, through conscious application, we can guide the amount of activation of our clairvoyance and our clairaudience, and also the other clair senses. The entirely different astral conditions, special organs are not necessary for attaining the results. In our physical body, we have the 5 physical senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. We have also other senses such as the sense of temperature, the sense of balance, a sense of altitude, a sense of pressure. These are also senses which are not connected to the 5 physical senses, but they nevertheless exist. So you also have other senses which exist in the astral body. You have senses specialized which exist in the mental body, and so on and so forth. So consequently, when you are spiritually developed, which means to say, when your soul energy is sufficient that you are consciously inhabiting and using all of your bodies, not just the physical, but all of the bodies, you have access to a large amount of sensory inputs. You can see things in front of you, around you, behind you, without even needing to move your head. So the purpose of telling you about all of these is to bring your awareness that yes, you have an astral body, and with your consciousness, with your concentration, you can control the amount of expansion of your awareness. And then with more and more practice, you can expand it to the very high levels as well as to the very basic levels. Okay. Any questions about this? Any questions up to this point? Okay. All right. So there's another point which we must kind of keep into account. Theosophical students are familiar with the idea of chakras, okay, or as they call it in these books as chakrams. So these chakras or chakrams, they exist in both the astral and the etheric bodies, and they have their centers of force which are vivified by the sacred serpentine fire. So the connection of chakras exists along with that of the kundalini, the serpent fire. Though these cannot be described as organs in the ordinary sense of the word, because it's not through them that any human being sees or hears, it's apparently very largely upon their activation and their vivification that the power of astral senses depends. Let's simplify. Your physical body has nerves and organs, internal organs. Your astral and your etheric, astral and mental bodies have nadis or the meridians, and they have the chakras. The amount to which you can function in the inner worlds, the amount to which you can function with your etheric, with your astral, and with your mental bodies depends upon the size and activation of your chakras. So if you want to have good clairvoyance, your chakras must be very clean. Your chakras must be very, very active. If your upper chakras are more active, your clairvoyance will be clearer. If it is not as active, then it will of course not be as clear. So if you have any spiritual practices which activates your heart, which then activates your crown, which brings in a huge amount of spiritual energy, and that spiritual energy flushes out all your chakras, flushes out your aura, flushes out your entire space, and makes all your chakras nice and big and bright and happy, then you are on the way to developing your clairvoyance. Do you know any spiritual practice in which you activate your heart and activates your crown to bring down a lot of energy that does this? So if you have been doing that meditation, if you've been practicing it for any amount of time, with your proper awareness, you will well be on the path of developing a certain amount of clairvoyance, simply because the chakras have been cleaned up, simply because the chakras have been purified to that extent. So the more you purify your chakral condition, the more you purify your subtle bodies, the more receptive you are to the subtle other energies and the development of your higher faculties. Now, none of the chakras have any permanent collection of astral matter. So just as in the physical body, you have the astral matter which is permanently there, the chakras don't have it. The chakras don't have any astral matter permanently connected with them. They're simply vortices of energy through which these particles pass in and pass out. So if you've got the physical body over here, okay, the astral matter doesn't just automatically pass through, it passes through the chakras, the major, the mini, and the other chakras which are there. So the chakras are the gateways. Given the purpose of the chakras is to act as gateways, the larger and more activated the chakras are, more such refined matter can pass in and out of the body. So if you have bigger chakras, it's easier to be clairvoyant. That's what this page is basically trying to say. And now we can go into more details, probably not so much since you almost had the time today. We're not going to be talking into so much detail about the mental plane or the astral plane, because we already covered these in the previous sessions, and it'll not be so much of a good use of time if you just go into it again. However, it's important that on the buddhic plane, so you've got the physical, mental, astral, or the buddhic above that, we meet for the first time with a new faculty which has nothing in common with any of the faculties we've spoken about so far, okay? In which you understand an object by an entirely different method, and which external vibrations don't play a role. the object becomes a part of himself. So in this Buddhic plane, the object becomes a part of himself, and you study it from inside instead of outside. So if I have an object like this, normally I'm studying it from the outside. I can see that it's got a square shape with rounded corners, and it's made of wood or a wood-like substance. It's got something metallic. In the Buddhic plane, the consciousness is inside, not from outside, inside, and it's from the inside out that it's able to study. So the development of this particular faculty, whether it's partial, whether it's full, any one of these faculties come under the development of clairvoyance, whether you're studying it from outside or whether you're studying it from inside. Because you're studying the object, you're seeing it beyond your physical senses, we can technically call it clairvoyance. The Buddhic plane, these parts, we don't talk about it so much. It's there in some of the other books. We will touch upon it, and I think Man, Visible and Invisible to a certain extent. Okay. So here again, it's the same theory we spoke about, the practice of the inner world, that if you're sleeping, the astral matter exits through the chakras, through the cords, and then it goes into the inner worlds, and you understand the activities of the inner world. Okay, so we've already covered these in the astral plane, in the mental plane. The only reason for putting this up on the slide is that this information has been covered in a great amount of depth in the previous study sessions, and there's no point in just going through it again. It's just already there. So there are now 3 types of clairvoyance, and this is where it becomes really interesting. There's simple clairvoyance, there's clairvoyance of space, and the clairvoyance of time. So what is simple clairvoyance? Simple clairvoyance is a mere opening of the sight, enabling the possessor, enabling the student to see whatever astral or etheric entities happen to be present around him. But it does not give the ability to see distant places or scenes from the past or the present. You can only see what is happening immediately around you. That is very simple, very, very basic clairvoyance. To a certain extent, when we practiced that, we visualize ourselves as small, front and back and along the sides. That was to a certain extent the visualization or the utility of simple clairvoyance. We can practice that some more time and see how the faculty develops. That's part 1. Part 2, clairvoyance of space, the capacity to see scenes or events far removed from the seer in space, and it's far too distant for ordinary observation, or if it's concealed by intermediate objects. So if it's hidden in a box and the box is 20,000 kilometers away, you can probably still see what's inside. So I don't remember which book this was exactly, but I think it was something by Leadbeater. He was chatting with one of the holy masters, not like chatting, but he used to write letters. And he would write letters to the holy master, and the book, there was a case, okay, a safe. He'd open this box and he'd put the letters inside the box and then close it. And after some time, the letters would come out with replies on them, something of that sort. So this was an example of clairvoyance in space through time, in which the higher beings would read what they had to say and give a physical reply to. I don't remember which book this was in, but it was mentioned, maybe Master of the Path, not 100% sure. And then finally, there's a third type, clairvoyance in time. That is the capacity to see objects or events which are far removed from them in space and in time. In other words, the ability to look into the past or into the future. So you might notice this. If you've been doing your spiritual practice, especially if you're an Arhatic yoga practitioner and you've done your Arhatic practices for some amount of time, you might notice that you have a certain clarity when it comes to your business, to your work, to your relationships. You get a feeling, you just know that going into business with this kind of person is going to be a great idea, or going into a relationship with that person, probably not such a good idea. You just know. Why? Because your higher faculties have to a certain extent been activated. You can foresee the future. You can foresee the future to a certain extent, giving you the faculty of clairvoyance in space and clairvoyance in time. Long story short, if you really want to develop your faculties, do your purifications, do your meditations. The more you purify your space, the more you energize and make it stronger, the more your ability to pick up on these kinds of information. Right. This brings us to the end of today's session, where we've covered the basic part of what clairvoyance is and what it isn't. In the next sessions, we'll be covering clairvoyance, simple clairvoyance and clairvoyance in space. And it'll probably take us maybe 2 or 3 more sessions to cover the whole book. All right. The tips and techniques part, we'll be using different portions of it from the various, from the chapter that's over there, and try to inject it into these lessons so it's a little more practical and not entirely theory. Because as you can see, it's very, very theory heavy. So I hope this particular session has been informative and you found some benefit. Do practice the invocation before going to bed, and seeing the results you get, please share with us. If you have any questions, we'll take them right now. Otherwise, it's all there on the WhatsApp group. So if you have any questions, we'll take them now. Okay, so we've got a question over here. Okay, so I've got a question. Let me try to see if I've understood it correctly. Sometimes there's a person who gets a thought that someone that they're talking to is lying. And they sometimes see a person and they get information about that person in their mind, in their thoughts, and they turn out to be true. So the question is, this person is asking that, am I seeing these things? Is it actually clairvoyance or is it something else? What exactly is this? So to a certain extent, it is clairvoyance because you are seeing the information, you're getting the information. The Clair series is not just limited to clairvoyance, as in clear vision, but also clairaudience, which is clear hearing. You can hear information. There is also something known as claircognizance and clairsentience, in which you sense things directly, in which you just know things directly. Most of us who are on this path, we have a blend of all of these abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and all that, in varying proportions. Okay, in varying proportions. And it's not exactly clearly defined that which faculty is activated at any point of time. So if you're getting information about a person whom you've just met, or if you get an idea that, okay, my friend's child is unwell, and then you call the friend and they say, okay, yeah, you know, she was sick or he was sick, that is your higher faculties which are coming into play, which are coming into activation. That is not to say that clairvoyance is the same as intuition. Intuition is extremely different from clairvoyance. Intuition is a much larger aspect, and clairvoyance might be just one tool of seeing. Okay. So is it better to practice seeing the aura with closed eyes or open eyes? It's up to you. It's up to you entirely what's comfortable for you. In this particular case, I would like I personally prefer to, when I was reading the book, when I was reading only the book, was to practice it visualizing, keeping myself closed, my eyes closed. Because if I use a mirror, I found myself getting distracted by 2 things. 1, by how dirty the mirror was, and 2, by the various objects surrounding me. Okay, and sometimes I also got that, oh my God, I look so good, or I need to shave. So I got distracted. So, you know, it's a good idea, depending on your level of comfort, on your level of practice, whether you want to use a mirror, whether you want to close your eyes and visualize. Okay. Did I say practice? Yeah, I said practice. Okay. So, you know, the one which you did in the kind of beginning of the session where you visualize yourself as 6 inches or 15 centimeters tall, and you do it for yourself. So basically you do it for yourself to begin with, because, you know, that way you're not invading anyone's privacy. Otherwise, you would just be staring at somebody, really visualizing them super, super intently, and that could be very uncomfortable for the other person, or it could be an invasion of their privacy. So for now, please just practice, if you want to practice, on yourself, using the method which has been mentioned in the book, that you visualize yourself, you make a note for yourself, and then you correlate. So if you've done the study sessions on the on thought forms, you know about the colors and the shapes, and that has been shared in the groups before. We'll probably share them again. Also, this particular slide, which was there, let me show you way at the beginning. There, this one. This particular slide, you can take a screenshot of this one, where it shows the colors of the aura, where you understand, you know, like pink notice love, and they've got yellow and blue. So try to see if you're visualizing, if your clarity is developing into through objects like this. Okay. Does the size of your aura have anything to do with your ability to see? Yes, it does. To a certain extent, yes, it does, because as we spoke of in the last part of the session, the more active your auras and chakras are, the clearer they are, the more amount of etheric and astral matter passes into you. So if more amount of matter is passing in and passing out, the clearer you are seeing. Think of it this way. If you have a camera which is 2 megapixels, and if you have a camera which is 64 megapixels, which one will give you the better image? You have a camera of 2 megapixels and you have a camera of 64 megapixels. Which one will give you the better image? The 64 megapixels one, because it can take in more information, it can take more data and put it into the photograph. So yeah, does your aura have an ability? Yes, it does. Bigger and cleaner. The aura must be clean. A dirty aura, no good. Okay. Okay then, so let us close today's session with an invocation. Let's just keep our body relaxed. Close your eyes. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to my spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, to my higher self, to my divine nature, to my guardian angels, thank you for your blessings of love, light, and power, of inner healing, physical healing, divine help, divine guidance, and divine protection. Thank you for your blessings of abundance and prosperity and spirituality. Thank you for helping us understand the topic of clairvoyance, about the various bodies, about ourselves, that we may use this information to become better persons, better healers, and better souls. We thank you in full faith. Thank you. Thank you. Atma Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining in. See you next Saturday for the second session. Have a good evening. Take care.